Oh, and good evening. It's September 4th, 2025, and welcome back to another season, another episode of Sons of the Father. Because we're beginning our discussions on The Chosen, Season 5. We know this was created by Dallas Jenkins, and tonight we were going to start exploring Episode 1. It's called Entry, and this is just our Part 1. Because during this series, my dad, John Warren, my brother Jim Warren, and we're going to converse. We're going to reflect on things that have impacted us as we've watched these episodes and maybe unpack some thoughts as well. So, welcome to Sons of the Father on the Dusty Feet. Our hope with the Dusty Feet is to foster discussion and help build and support communities. If you are not already connected to a community or just want to share and interact, this community has 4 primary ways to interact. 1. DustyFeet.com. That's our primary place to find everything. You are always free to comment. 2. Facebook, at the Dusty Feet. These videos and other videos are also available for comment and discussion. And 3. We have a Discord channel. The invite link is there below. Be vocal, be written, be loving. And 4. And as always, you are welcome to send an email to bob@thedustyfeet.com. These places, they will be moderated, and guidelines will be set to ensure healthy, safe discussion. And as always on the Dusty Feet, this is a place where we can safely explore the endless ways of God and the interconnection of His creation. Belief understandings may be challenged, divine misunderstandings may exist, and traditional teachings might falter as we pursue connection, context, and community with God and each other here in an environment of grace and love. And of course, before we forget, if you find these kinds of podcasts useful, that's when you click that subscribe button. The reminders, they just help you. But also, if you think these might be useful to others, please, that is when you click that like button, because that is how YouTube chooses to share them to more people if they wish. And we need to remember, we have all of our previous seasons. They're up for review and discussion on theDustyFeet.com. So, Season 5, Episode 1, Entry. As we begin with a word of caution to ourselves, right? We must continue to remember that this is a storyteller's tale. This is not a biblical recounting. So much is left unsaid in Scripture, and we fill in blanks with our minds, each most likely with slightly different rendering, stories wrapped around stories. And I suspect we're going to get more stretching in the storytelling as we go on, and we need to stay aware of the differences between the story as it is expressed in Scripture and the tale that's portrayed here. We're going to try our best to be careful and respectful as we wander and weave through this beginning of Season 5. The opening scene before the credits is something that I enjoy in storytelling. For me, personally, I'll start this with it's a part where you see a scene, you hear it play out, then you realize this is a future event, and that you're told, like in a script, 1 week before comes later. The thing we don't get here is the 1 week before on the text across the screen. But we're going to come to understand this as we start moving forward. There are subtle hints at opening scene, and I suspect we're going to get back to this scene probably more than once in future episodes, yeah? So with that, gents, let's talk.
Well, excuse me. Great start. As I pass away here, uh, what I enjoyed about this is the way Dallas captured the heaviness of that Last Supper with Jesus. The other guys, they didn't really know what was going on, so they each had their own emotions, and sometimes we forget. I remember when I used to lead teams, and we would, especially new people, would go to a country, and they would have in their minds what they'd like to do. When I had in my mind what they were going to do, their responsibilities. There was some obviously some freedoms in there for them to play out their own personalities and their job roles. But Jesus is telling them a lot of things, and yet not telling them a lot of things. And I really think that that was important to have him go through that, so we could get kind of a feeling of where he was and yet where they were. Um, Jesus was trying to explain what he was going to do without telling them what was going to happen. And maybe he just didn't want to talk about it. Maybe you think that would scare him too much. They'd revolt to that.
Yeah.
But as you could look around, the camera would pan around to the different um, apostles, different followers, and the expressions on their faces I thought was interesting as well, because they were thinking different things. Each one of them was thinking. Judas was hoping for something, and some were thinking things, and they didn't. They were listening to him, but they still had their own. Um, uh, and he was talking in parables, and that was confusing to them to a degree. But I don't know. I really appreciated the way Dallas got set the scene for what was going to continue to happen for that. What'd you think of it, Jim?
That was beautiful. Just visually was beautiful. Bob, I think you mentioned, I don't know, it was last week or the week before, one of the things you're realizing is, or no, Dad, I think you did, the production value has definitely gone up in terms of how well they're filming this. But it's funny when you said that, I thought the exact same thing. I thought it's interesting how much Jesus is saying, but how little he's saying at the same time. And yet so often, and I think of my own teaching, and as I see other teachers, preachers, pastors, we try to explain so much that we lose the mystery. And Jesus is leaving a lot of mystery in what he's speaking. And I think there's intention, obviously, in that. And it was fun to watch the how did I write it? Their adolescent commitment to him. We're in this with you, Jesus, and Jesus obviously looks at them and he's like, you have no idea, what this is going to cost you. But hang on to that, hang on to that faith you've got right now, because it's going to get tested. Mm-hmm. And, even his saying, you will have tribulations. That wasn't a curse. That was just a truth. That was a reality. Mm-hmm. It was something he knew that was going to happen. Mm-hmm. And yet again, in our Christian culture here in the U.S., we don't think of Christianity and tribulation as being connected. Mm-hmm. It's not in our mindset, and yet almost everywhere else in the world, it's very much that. Mm-hmm. But what you were saying too that hit me was the content and the context of what Jesus was saying, and being there at this supper meal together was very significant. And like you said, Bob, I agree. I think we're going to keep bouncing back and forth from that moment into other scenes, as the series did. Mm-hmm. Because it's such a significant mm-hmm. Event mm-hmm. in the life of Christ, and we're going to see obviously more of it.
Mm-hmm. It's a pivoting scene. We've had the week before, and then we have this scene, and then we're going to have the days that follow, mm-hmm. right? It's interesting. Again, like I said, we all perceive things in our heads, and I think sometimes we draw to different conclusions, because this is a Passover meal. So to me, the lighting and the whole deal is not what I would have pictured. Okay? Because that's what this is. We get in the story and I don't know how they're going to address it, on the deal, is that he's doing a Passover meal and he's addresses a bunch of things in the Passover meal. I'm hoping we get back to this many times and we get to walk backwards in this scene where we're kind of forward in it, because pay attention again that all the characters are sitting around the table and realize who's not there. So we realize where we're at in this picture because we don't have things. We get them later in the episode, but not in that scene. And I think is how that's gonna draw this. So yeah, for me, I had a different. My expectation what was different. So I saw what was going on. It definitely, the scene set the script for sure. And the Jimmy, your point's clear that they have tribulation that's going to come. Yes, I like the phrase almost an adolescent way of doing it, and we're going to get to that even more so. But in our churchy way of doing things, we have traditionally thrown this group, not just the disciples, because then we kind of don't want to put them in with the same group that we're dissing as a group in the larger people, that they rejection and da 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 da, and you go, they don't understand. They don't understand. And these guys who are the closest to him don't understand. And you're listening to him talk and you're going, that's not clear. You listen to other stuff and that's not clear. Sometimes we go, oh, but he means this. And you go, you can't look at it looking backwards. You got to look at it going the direction that it's heading. And that's a challenge for us. So we tend to throw that particular part on them and the expectations and what we're going to get. And that's going to include certain individuals within this inner circle and what their actions are and this. And because I wrote this, I said, so when is it clear, right? I get this. As for me, to be honest, I'm not really sure how the disciples were supposed to fully understand what was to come, much less any of the other surrounding people and the story that played out. I don't know how they were supposed to understand that. I honestly don't. Because they're mixing what they think they're hearing with, I have to go away and I have to die. And it's a confusing part of the story. And their struggles with it get to me. So, there's points that I want to, get to, but we'll get to more. Okay. So Dad, continue.
Well, listening to you guys, you bring out different points, which is the whole idea of this, and how we view it as we're watching our drawing it in. We see different things. Jim's been on several of the teams and we went to different countries, and the way they do church and the way they look at life in general. I think it's interesting. One of the things Jesus shared that you're going to abandon me, you're going to turn from me, and of course, what? No way. I mean, they got mad at him, except Thomas. Thomas, when that's what I think, that his idea of fanning around, and not fanning but panning and catching the expressions on the different apostles' faces was really something to me, because they're all thinking different things. And he hasn't even told Peter yet what he's going to do. He's just said that you're going to struggle. We said, we're ready to die for you. You're gonna. And they're not there. I could put myself in that position because of some things that I went through in my life, and things that I was told that said, no, that's not good. When I was in the middle of my career of cutting hair, if somebody said, a few years you're going to be, working at a ministry, I just said, you're out of your minds, because I saw myself like my grandfather cutting hair until I was 80 years old, which now I realize there's no way that's going to happen. I could barely hold my arms up. But the point is that he shared that they would abandon him, and they said no. Thomas is still upset about the whole thing. Whether, as I look back on it, I could see why Thomas would have been upset if that had actually happened. And Bob, you made it very clear
Thank you.
beforehand that
Thank you.
that's those are things that were written in the script to make them in. They might have happened. They might not have. Doesn't make any difference to what the scene we're looking at here. There's still a massive amount of confusion and opinions on what is lying ahead. James, what's up with you?
To have, well, again, we have to go back to context and culture. It was common for a rabbi to have a following, to have a group of people that were devotees. And so the disciples being devoted to Jesus is not counterculture by any means. Obviously, there's a higher motivation because of their expectation and, minimal understanding that Jesus is the Messiah. So this is not just your average rabbi that they're committed to. But to be sitting in a room with this beloved leader, hang on, and have him say, I'm going to be gone. And then I'll be back. And then I'll be gone again. Got to be disturbing. I've never had a leader that I've been that devoted to. I mean, I've had bosses that I have loved and, I'm committed to, whatever their vision for the organization was or whatever. So I'm trying to figure out how could I put myself into their shoes and understand the confusion that's got to be going on and his lack of clarity to help assuage any, fears. He's just allowing it to be present. I don't know. It was interesting watching it, trying to see what they're feeling and know that there's a lot going on there with those guys and them trying to understand everything. And, doing their best to say, okay, yeah, we might not get it, but we're committed to this and we're going to, be with you regardless. It's got to be tough, really tough. And it kind of drove home for me, what does that do in terms of my own faith? And those times when I feel like, God, I don't understand why you're doing this. But can I trust you with what little understanding I have, and stay committed?
It's interesting for me in a storyteller's context. I mentioned this before on an episode not too long ago where I enjoy. I have no problems knowing the result of a story. A game, a race, whatever, at some event, and then, but I'll still watch it. You go, but you already know who won. I said, I want to see how we got there, and you go, I want to see, and I want to see how it unfolds, because sometimes in the middle you go, especially in a car race where you go, how in the world is he going to win this thing? When you're looking at the middle, going, the car's junk and the deal, they're at the tail end of the, just that kind of stuff. So in this particular one, and we cannot unknow what we know, which is probably one of the biggest challenges that we have to us, even stretching what we think we know. But when we see the scenes that then unfold after the credits in this opening scene, and we get to why they're struggling with this. In other words, they're going to play right next to, and we have this scene, and Dad, you were talking about it off scene, with the fact that the only real part of the scene that you were looking at with the palm fronds and the whole deal and the Hosanna and this whole piece is just the gate and the people that are there and that dirt that's there. The rest of it's blue screen, and then they go and draw in all the stuff and you go, wow, that's really cool. And so that sneak in is to, we think we see what we see and then we have what we have. So they're walking in with Hosanna, and that's when you get that interaction with them all going, he's king, which makes that scene you just watched even more the point why they're getting this way. They all think and Judas' dad in that scene is making it very clear, hey, this is it. We're here. I'm here. We're here. This is happening. And to be truthful, all of them get this. All of them are at that point. Dad, I like your point, and I think we need to keep an eye on that because it's a really good one, is when the camera sneaks a peek at Thomas, because there's his expectation. I wrote through words. I said expectations, misplaced, misunderstood, mistimed. Okay? So they have a lot of expectations, because we today have our own expectations of what's going to happen. So what is not misplaced, misunderstood, or mistimed? And we're just seeing their life played out in this way. And I look at them and I go, Jesus lets it run. That's the story that unfolds. Dad, you bring up this point that this is happening, and he has the opportunity to stop and clarify, and he doesn't. Right? Now, again, to be fair, there was a man many, many moons before that said this has to happen. This is one of those things you're going to see that hopefully, if you're there in that time and you notice it, that's great. It's always meant to be after that scene's played, and now you've read this. You look back on that scene and go, that's when it makes sense. We don't get it in the moment. We don't. It's an extreme few that get it in the moment. I'll give that that's a possibility, but that it's the double look back. Yeah, where we get to see, I get it, and to why, and why you see the way they paint it, Jesus's angst on what's happening. Yeah. So again, not to put too much weight on the people that are expressing themselves, because they have the same expectations of those 12 that are around him, and the whole entourage that are around him and the crowd that follow. So I tend to cut them a little slack.
Yeah, because they don't know what's happening. And I'm assuming we're wrapping this up. So, but there's a couple of thoughts that I had that I think there's so many stories going on here. There's Matthias. He's taking the notes for Nicodemus. He's up in the and there's Atticus that's in the crowd, and he's you can tell, but he's got all these different emotions and looks on his face that you don't know whether he's setting something up or is he absorbing what's being said and it's starting to move his heart. And so as we move along, it just gets, there's more and more and more stories, not only in the apostles, when all 12 of them, as we see with Peter. I think I'm going to start preaching. I mean, they've all got some sort of an idea of what they want to do, and that unfolds a bit with this episode and things that we'll continue to get into. But those are some of the things that I noticed, that it isn't just the 12, it's everybody else that's out
Yeah.
there, moving. It's not a chess game. It's more like I don't know what kind of game, but it's a game, and it's interesting. I thought Dallas has done a good job with it.
Yeah.
Jim?
I know next episode we'll probably start with, Jesus' entry into the gate and, all of that stuff. So wrapping up just this little section of the upper room experience with the disciples. Well, something that jumped out, and I've read it a million times and I've preached on it, and it just never hit me. I've always loved John 17, which is they call it the high priestly prayer, or the prayer that Jesus had over his disciples, which is beautiful, beautiful prayer. But in there, Jesus says, and this is eternal life, and he says that they know you and that they know Jesus Christ, whom you have sent. And it was weird to hear Jesus refer to himself as Jesus Christ. Now we know it's Jesus the Christ, that it's more of a title. And that's what was interesting. It's like he was able to step back and realize this is a role I'm playing as part of God's bigger picture of what he's doing. But it was like, oh, that just sounded weird, but beautiful also in just understanding that his. And that's what I love about Jesus is his humility that says, this isn't about me. This is about the Father and the Father's plan. And I'm playing a part in it that completes all of what he's longing to do, which is to reunite all of mankind with himself.
Yeah.
And so it was just a lovely moment of remembrance for me as he's praying this prayer that has always been beautiful. Just hearing it from Jesus's lips, even though it's not Jesus that was saying it, was Jonathan Ramey that was saying it, but from his character was fun.
It's interesting. And Jimmy, I agree that hit me a little differently. It was, the Messiah is what Christos took the place of the word Messiah. If you go back and you look at Hebrew Matthew, for instance, it's Messiah, 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 and they create this point. Speaking about yourself, this is the whole point, is that we don't hear him saying that. So this is one of those storyteller weaves, because Jesus didn't talk like that, which we'll get into more parts probably as we get to the very, very end in season whatever, because we're going to have some things to talk about there. But yes, that the point that he makes is that I'm only doing what my Father says, and my Messiah role is here. You're not understanding it the way you think it's going to play out. And that's one of the big challenges that they're going to have as he's looking out over these people, these men that are sitting in front of him at the table, understanding that as this plays out, it's going to get extremely uncomfortable. Yeah. So there's going to be a lot unfolding there, which again, we like. So, okay. So remember, we have those interactive resources that we mentioned at the beginning, right? And they're available for you to ask questions, discuss any ideas or thoughts that you may have that arise along your way, because we're going to be happy to ponder other ideas, other concerns as they pop up. So again, thank you all. Shalom, shalom, and thanks for being with us as we begun season 5 tonight with Sons of the Father on the Dusty Feet. And that's not there.